Hey Amarillo, I'm Jason Boyette, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. This episode is supported by StoryBridge, an early childhood literacy program. In Potter and Randall counties, less than half of the children entering kindergarten are ready to learn to read. And this educational deficit at age 5 will negatively affect a child's performance all the way through their school career. Well, a few years ago, StoryBridge launched the Dolly Parton Imagination Library program to address this problem. And thanks to generous local donors, more than 8,000 children under 5 are now registered and receive a new age-appropriate book in the mail every month at no cost to these families. In fact, StoryBridge just expanded into Armstrong County, too, and is working to expand the program to reach more than 10,000 area children. If you'd like to give or get involved, visit storybridgeama.org to learn more. That's storybridgeama.org. And as part of this podcast partnership with Brick and Elm Magazine, I want to give a podcast shout out to Cowboys and Cowgirls in the West and to Amarillo ISD. The July-August issue of Brick and Elm is available now in print. You can find it at United Supermarkets, Burrowing Owl Books, Barnes & Noble, and other locations around town. Or you can find it online at brickandelm.com. You can read the digital e-reader, which looks just like the magazine. Our latest cover story is a tour of Amarillo ice cream and frozen treats, palettas, popsicles, snow cones, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun, so I hope you'll pick it up. Today's guest is Brittani Sullivan. I met Brittani when I hired her business, the mobile bartending service Sips and Giggles, to work at my 300th episode live show last year. Brittani was born in Amarillo, but she moved away when she was 10, and she spent the next couple decades living in Colorado. She was working as an elementary school teacher in Pueblo during the pandemic, and a variety of circumstances led to her and her husband moving to Amarillo. That's when she pivoted her career into entrepreneurship. She opened Sips and Giggles, and now she's fully established here. So we talk about her work. We talk about what Amarillo offers that Colorado didn't, and about operating a woman-owned business here in the Texas Panhandle. So here's Brittani Sullivan. Brittani Sullivan, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you. I know that you're familiar with the show. You were at my 300th episode live show, serving drinks, which I appreciate. So I want to start with you, though, the same way I start with all my guests, and that's just to ask why you're here in Amarillo. It's probably a pretty interesting story. So tell me what brought you to this area.
Well, I was born here, and I was raised here until I was 10.
Okay.
My family moved to Colorado Springs when I was 10. I lived there until I was 18, and then I moved on to college to Durango, Colorado. I lived in Durango for about 7 years, and then I moved to Denver, Colorado. From Denver, we moved to Pueblo for 1 year during COVID, and I got pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, I need to be around family. So my husband and I decided, let's move to Amarillo. There was family, there was everything we needed there. And so hence why we're here.
Okay, so you moved here, what year?
2021.
2020? Okay, 2021.
Yep.
All right.
We lived in Pueblo for a full year. We bought a house, renovated it during COVID. Again, rough patch. Mm-hmm. But, it brought us here, and we're grateful to be here. As a young teen, going back and forth from Colorado to Amarillo, visiting family, I was like, I will never live here ever in my life. And it is just so funny how this full circle has come, and I never want to move now.
It's a stark difference because so many people who live here travel to Colorado for vacation. Yes. And, you always wonder if moving there permanently is going to be just as good as, vacation Colorado is.
Yes.
So what's your perspective on that? Because you moved at age 10, like that's a hard time to leave all of your friends and go kind of uproot, starting a new place. What was that like?
It was different for sure. People are different. Well, I went from Amarillo to Canyon to Dalhart, and then Dalhart to a really big city.
Okay.
And I thought, I lived in New York City. I thought it was this huge metroplex. And it is, but not like New York. It was different. The people are different, but we acclimated, and I love Colorado. I don't know how you couldn't. The beauty, the everything. So it became my normal, and I was sad to leave, but I couldn't picture living there right now
Okay.
at all.
I want to ask this, just thinking of my listeners and probably their experience with Colorado. You've lived in Colorado Springs, Denver, and Pueblo, which are kind of the three biggest cities in Colorado.
Yeah, on the Front Range for sure.
And Durango. I mean,
Durango down in the Southwest.
So, like, are those cities all uniquely different? Like, is there a...
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, completely different. So you've got Durango being the southwest of Colorado. You have a huge native presence and that southwestern culture with a lot of cowboys. It's very, very, very cool farming, ranching over there, mixed in with your typical Colorado native, local, hippie-esque people. And then you have Pueblo, which is also a fun mix of people. There's this whole mobster scene.
I've heard about
Yes.
that. Yeah.
It's kind of neat.
Southeast Colorado.
Yeah, the history of the mobsters is really, really cool. And like the local spots and the stories behind them, very neat. Then Colorado Springs, you have pure beauty with the rocks, the red rocks and stuff like that. And it's kind of conservative, more conservative than I would say Denver for sure.
Like Focus on the Family is
Yeah,
based in Colorado
oh my
Springs
gosh,
and has
huge.
dominated the culture there for a long time.
Huge. When we were there, it was a big thing. Like we had birthday parties there.
Okay.
At Focus on the Family.
I did not know that was a thing. But
Oh
all right.
yeah, they have an epic slide. I just remember that as a kid. And then there is, Denver, which is every walk of life, in my opinion, is very, very neat. So
tell me about that decision to move back here during the turbulence of the pandemic, during the emotional turbulence of being pregnant, like all those things. Tell me, walk me through the decision making there.
Well, we decided to move to Pueblo because I had a condo in Denver. My husband and I had bought one there, and I was a teacher and he is in recruiting, and we were making great money for our age, but we were like, how can we expand our money, So we were looking at Pueblo's market, and their houses were significantly cheaper and the cost of living was cheaper. And we were like, okay, let's go buy houses there and flip them and make a killing.
Okay.
We also had some friends that lived there. So they had told us, let's go out and just come look, come see it. You'll fall in love. And the idea of Pueblo that most people have is like the armpit of Colorado.
Right.
Nobody really loves Pueblo.
I-25 passes through the worst part of Pueblo. A lot like I-40.
Yes.
If you don't ever get off I-40 in Amarillo, you're not seeing true Amarillo.
Yes, agreed. And so, yes, exactly. So if you don't get off, you don't really get to see. And I mean, again, I'm not the biggest lover of Pueblo, but I'm grateful for my time there.
Yeah.
Anywho, but so we decided to sell our house and buy a house in Pueblo, and it just happened. We closed in March. COVID happened in March.
Yeah.
And I moved down there, and because, I was teaching, and they said, well, we're going online. So I taught from Pueblo, my Denver students.
Okay.
And then we renovated a house all of 2020, and it was lonely. It was sad. I hated it.
Yeah.
And it's
a terrible
not
time to move.
It was horrible.
You're not going to
timing,
connect with anybody.
For sure. And so making friends was impossible. Nobody wanted to be around you, for understandable reasons. But it was just a rough spot.
Okay.
And so my husband's family is from Boulder, and we couldn't afford to live in Boulder.
I don't know how anyone can, but yeah.
I don't. They've lived there forever, so I think that's why. So we decided there's no way we can move and live in Boulder. And so we were only like 5 hours from Amarillo, so we would drive all the time from Pueblo to Amarillo just to visit my parents, just to do something on the weekends during COVID. And my husband goes, I think I could live here. And I was like, what? My born and raised Boulder husband said that? Gross. There's no way. And then so we started looking at houses, just entertaining the idea. And he's always wanted some land. And then it just naturally happened. He's like, let's move there. We have family, we have support, let's do it. And I was like, okay. So we did it, and here we are.
Okay. So had you spent your career as a teacher?
Yes.
What did you teach?
I predominantly taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Okay. Loved the little babies there. Anything lower than 3rd grade is not my jam. Anything higher than 5th grade is definitely not my jam. So stuck within that realm. And I taught in Denver and in Pueblo.
Was that, in thinking about moving here, Was it an option for you to teach? Like, are there some hurdles in the way getting certification, or what was that like?
No, I mean, it's not an easy process. You just have to, test and get recertified in a different state. But I promised myself I would never do it again.
Really?
Yes. It's just, I'm sure everybody knows how educators dance, and it's a tough job. Mm-hmm. No matter where you're at, I don't think everywhere it's tough, public education. So I said, I'm not doing it again, but come to find out I did. But that's how I came up with Sips and Giggles. I asked my husband, I was like, what can I do differently than teach? And like, what do I have a passion in doing? I mean, bartending is great. It's not a passion, but it is something I love, customer service, and I've done it forever. I've bartended forever throughout college. So we were just, looking through Pinterest one day, and I stumbled across a horse trailer in the UK that they had made into a pizza oven that I thought was so neat. And then I saw another one that said a mobile bar, and I was like, what is a mobile bar? And so I started researching, and I was like, let's do it. So I started knocking on people's doors in Pueblo who had a horse trailer in their front yard. And I just knocked, and I offered them money. I got a bajillion no's. And one lady was like, I'll sell you it. Yeah, absolutely. So I just bought her horse trailer from her, and I loaded all my stuff up, and I moved to Amarillo.
Okay. Did you have the Sips and Giggles idea as something to try in Pueblo, or was it the move to Amarillo that like instigated it?
Move to Amarillo.
You just brought the trailer with you.
Do something new. Get a whole new facelift to my life, everything, career. Let's do it. Let's just make a change. So it was neat. And then literally we moved here. We got started in my dad's shop. Okay. And just started renovating the trailer. Was anybody doing anything like that on the bartending side? I mean, you arrived at a moment where really the food truck culture was in a renaissance. Like we had been behind for so many years. And then around 2018, 2019, it just kind of flipped. It boomed. There were so many. Yeah, I was researching all of the food trucks in Amarillo. I was like, oh my God, there's and there are always more. There are always more. And the more that are popping up. And it's fabulous. I love that. I had not seen any mobile bars, but when I moved here, upon research, I did find out about one, but we had totally different looks and offered different things. And so I was like, okay, we're different enough. It's not like I'm copying you, but yeah, different enough. And everybody deserves a slice of this pie, so bring it on. I'm gonna do it. So we did it. Were there some hurdles opening a mobile bar like that? I know TABC can be really complicated. Yes. My experience is in Texas. It may be the same in Colorado. But like, did you have to go through any weird regulations to get permission to do what you're doing? Not so much permission. When I spoke to the city, I talked to Anthony over there. He was like, good luck, because people have been wanting to do this forever, but have not figured out how to do it. And I was like, oh my, I didn't think it was, it's a private thing. Mm-hmm. I'm private hired. The hurdle that I ran into was getting my rig, my trailer, up to city code. A lot of these trailers that you'll see are not, new ones that are coming in are not up to city code, but I knew that I wanted to do some public events. So we do a couple a year, like Gals in the Garden and some other ones that we'll do later on. But we wanted to be able, like, if an inspection came around, that we're up to code. We have, the right ceilings, the proper floors, but in this cute horse trailer. Yeah. So that was the biggest hurdle, was trying to get everything up to city standards. But other than that, really no hurdles. Okay. The biggest hurdle we're facing right now is working on getting a liquor license. That one's a tough one. All right. But so beer and wine is okay. It's an extra step. That one's hard too. Okay. We don't have that. We don't have a liquor license, beer or wine at all right now. Again, working on it. It's a lengthy process. TBC, other than having your licensing and stuff like that, is such a long process. Not so much TBC, the city takes a long time to approve a lot of stuff. So we just opened up a storefront just to get it out of my house. All right. I'm so grateful. We have a shop, so our girls as in our bartenders, they don't have to come to my house at midnight anymore and drop off their stuff and giggle about who said what and count their tips while my child's sleeping. I'm like, oh, thank God. It's nice to get it out of my house. Tell me how Sips and Giggles is being used. So, like, who are your clients? What kinds of events, have become your specialty? And has that changed from, like, when you first started or what you envisioned? Sure. Well, I think like most people starting a business, I got a bajillion no's before I got my first yes. And that was challenging figuring out Amarillo's market coming from Denver.
Were you going out and like trying to sell your services?
I cold called all day long.
You don't just open up a website and hope that somebody finds it.
Hey guys, please purchase my businesses. Yeah, no, it was really difficult. But I just shared on every platform I could find. Social media is a godsend sometimes. It can be a curse, but every group I could find in Amarillo, like Amarillo moms, Amarillo this, anything I could find that, hey, they might be interested in my services. I shared and I was vulnerable and was like, here I am. Here's what I did. Give me a chance.
Yeah. I've got a new baby.
Yeah.
To feed.
Please support us. Then I cold called all the venues and was like, I know you've never heard of me. I know this is a stretch. Here's some pictures. Here's my packet. Here's what we do. Can I come serve you drinks? And I did several free events before I got my first paid event. So other than that, that was the hardest part. But our first client ever, and we always call it like our birthday, is also from Six Collective's birthday. Our first client was Casey Tam, and I was like so grateful for her. And so November 6th, we got to do it together. So it was so much fun. But she was where we really got seen, and we're grateful for that. But our clients range all over the place. Our bread and butter is weddings. Tons and tons and tons of weddings, at least 2 a week. Always can have more, but we're just at our bare minimum. We're doing 2 a week. But our newest clients have been Wolflin, which is so nice. We do a lot of the Art Force parties, and we're in love with that. Some
sort of like parties. Private, larger parties.
Yes.
Okay.
We've done lingerie parties. We've done birthday parties. We've done baby showers and kids parties. Obviously mocktails. But the adults can have the good stuff. We've done it all. We did a live podcast for you.
Well, you've done very large gatherings too.
Yes.
I mean, I think I've seen you at Dove Creek for one of their big fundraising dinners, and there were hundreds of people there. So
we did Symphony Ball last year. That was fabulous. We were at the Martini Bar there. We've done so many great things. People ask us like, "What's your favorite thing?" I'm like, I can't. There's so many fun ones that we've been to, and then weddings are so different. So we've done some cool stuff.
I want to ask about the wedding part of it, because it is summer. This is still wedding season, and you're getting to participate like in celebrations, multiple times a week. And to me, that feels like a really good opportunity for you to get to know Amarillo people. Still being a relative newcomer. You were born here, of course.
Sure.
But like, do you learn about this community by being at the kinds of events that you're at, and by being in a position to serve people alcohol, during a celebration where everybody is just kind of at their best, hopefully.
Right.
What do you learn about people in the process?
Okay, so Amarillo is an interesting hub of people for sure. I'm going to just say one thing about the weddings is Amarillo's venues are typically the same. The barns are the same. It's a lot of barnage. And
big metal buildings.
Yeah. And so you see people who are into that vibe, who are into the countryside. And then there's people who are turning that barn into something classier and pretty. I mean, it is a vulnerable situation to be serving people drinks and them having to come and talk to you and explain, the more drinks they have, the more feelings they have, the more things they want to say to you.
Conversations get longer.
Yeah. But the Amarillo people, there's so many, just the walks of life are great, but there's a lot of money in this town is what I like to think of, what I've learned. And as a kid, not seeing that.
It's quiet money in a lot of cases. Not always very flashy.
Yes, very.
Because it involves, land holdings that have been passed on for generations.
Yes, and you're like, oh, these are the owners of Bush's Baked Beans. And you're like, oh, okay, great. Thank you. And you're just like silently, they're like, oh, he owns a bank. You're like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, it's fabulous. But yeah, they're people are people. But yeah, it's fun to get to know everybody. It's a big deal for me. I love talking to people in customer service. So.
Well, and then you're in the right career for that.
Yeah.
Is it difficult, or was it difficult for you to break through, not just because you had a new business, because you were new in town and you didn't have maybe the connections, you had family connections, but you're in a business where it's all relationship driven. People have to know you and trust you. Besides just kind of, splashing through social media, was it hard to kind of create those relationships at the beginning?
Oh, yeah. So hard. I was so worried. Like, that made me so nervous and super self-conscious, is not knowing people. And then learning about Amarillo is most people will use your services if they've either had it or they've experienced it, or their auntie's aunt or friend had told them that you're worth the purchase.
Yeah, there's a lot of word of mouth.
Beyond. And so that was so hard. It's like, oh God, give me a chance. And not knowing people. But then, slowly getting into it and working with vendors and then being like, wow, you guys are incredible. This is awesome. We've always wanted something like this. And just the recommendations and being on those preferred vendors list and just forming complete organic, natural relationships with the people you work with every weekend is so cool. And it has done us great. We are super happy to do that. But yeah, it was hard. It was definitely hard at first.
One of the stories we like to tell is that Amarillo is a really good place to start a business or to run a small business. And I wonder if you think, what you're doing now would have worked as well if you tried it in Colorado Springs or Denver or Pueblo.
I always think about that. A friend of mine, he was like, do this in Pueblo, and I was like, no, because I couldn't picture it going over well, There are some of these in Denver and in Colorado Springs, but I just think how big the city is and how saturated things are would be challenging. And I think about, this is so obnoxious, but I think about driving on I-25 with a horse trailer and I literally want to throw up because I hate driving on I-27 and I-40 with my horse trailer. But just driving the streets of Denver would make me die. But I don't think it would go over as well. I think it would be much harder.
Yeah. There's a smallness to Amarillo that I think works in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you compare it to Colorado Springs or Denver. Yeah. It's easier to get noticed here, but it's because it's small, but it's still big enough that you can have, 2 weddings a week during the summer.
Right. Absolutely. Have you ever heard of The Knot?
No.
The website.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The wedding website. Yes.
Yeah. The wedding website. So in Denver, that's a huge thing to be on the top 3 pages of The Knot. Like, you're going to get seen. But Denver brides use that. Even Denver brides if you're in Pueblo, you want to advertise on The Knot. The Knot keeps calling me. And I'm like, guys, I'm already on the top page and it's free. Like, I don't want to be.
You don't need to advertise.
And they're like, well, we don't have an Amarillo page. And I'm like, I don't need it. But if I was there, I'd have to be paying so much money just to be on that front page, just to be seen. I have a friend who runs a mobile wood-fired pizza oven in Denver, and he was like, I'm paying this much money per month to be on the 3rd page of The Knot. And he was like, we're getting booked. It's fabulous. But he's like, there's hundreds of pages of food trucks, and who wants to click through 100? You're going to look at your top 3. So I'm grateful, very grateful that that is not something I have to do. So yeah, I think it would be much better, or it is much better to have a business here than trying to start one there.
Another thing I've always been interested in, and I've seen a lot of growth in the past few years, is woman-owned businesses in Amarillo. Yeah. And that's one thing I appreciate about what you're doing, and want to know, like, is there a community that you've found among people who aren't doing exactly what you're doing, but let's say the food truck community or female entrepreneurs or something that you're able to kind of draw from, learn from, share best practices with, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, when I think about who I work with the most, like when it comes to catering, florist, or, anything, they're all female ran. And it is so cool to see. And, we have little luncheons, or we'll go get together and we'll just vibe and bounce ideas off of, like, what do you think for this one? And try to bring new ideas to Amarillo. I just think it's so neat to see so many women doing this, and me not being the only one.
Yeah.
So I think it would be hard as the only woman in a predominantly ran situation. But no, this is really, really cool. Something I've always thought would be neat to work with a whole bunch of ladies. And I just think it's wonderful.
Has the quality of life change moving here from Colorado been what you wanted it to be?
For me, yeah, absolutely. For my husband, not so much. Okay. He's a big skier, a big rafter, a big fisherman. The fishing's not a problem. He's finding love in the lake instead of a river. But yeah, I am much happier right now, for sure. My quality of life feels much better than it did there, for sure. I was busy. I'm still busy, but I always found something to do that I probably shouldn't have been doing, spending money somewhere that I shouldn't have been spending money.
The last thing I wanted to ask is, your experience of Amarillo up until age 10, is one thing. And then you experienced it visiting family. But now you live here, you're active here. Have you learned something about this area, about the people here? Like, do you feel like you understand it in a different way than maybe you did as a kid, or how you looked at it when you were living in Colorado?
Yeah, I think there's a Kool-Aid that everybody drinks. Everybody comes back. My parents came back. This is just home. And then, I came back, and there's something special about this place, even though I said I never, ever, I swore I would never live here again. But I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the people, maybe it's the absolute strength and community and the support in small business. But yeah, I think to me, it's those. Yeah, we don't have the beauty that I had minus PDC.
Right. It's a different kind of beauty.
It's a different kind of beauty, but beauty's not everything.
This episode of Hey Amarillo is supported by Amarillo Habitat for Humanity, which works with families across the city to provide an alternative path to homeownership. Last week, Amarillo Habitat handed over the keys to its 120th local home. Now, this process isn't a free giveaway, but it includes financial stability courses, volunteer construction, sweat equity from the families. They have to volunteer at Habitat Stuff, a certain number of hours to receive their home, reasonable down payments, and no interest loans. Strong and stable homes help build strong and stable communities. And there really are so many great nonprofits in Amarillo, but Habitat is the only one that focuses on affordable home ownership. It helps people help themselves, and that's why I love this organization. Learn more at amarillohabitat.org, and thanks to Amarillo Habitat for Humanity for sponsoring the podcast. Okay, I'm back with Brittani Sullivan. Brittani, this is part of the show I call 8 Straight. 8 Straight is sponsored every week by Panhandle Plains Historical Museum in Canyon. It's the largest history museum in Texas, and its collection includes, and I chose this for you, its collection includes the old Tascosa Bar, which is an artifact from the saloon in what used to be known as the cowboy capital of the Panhandle, back in 1880, before Amarillo was even established. So they have that actual bar. It's really cool. It's giant. Ooh. Today, Tascosa is the location of Cal Farley's Boys Ranch, if you've been out there. Mm-hmm. There's no longer a bar at Boys Ranch, yes. We should say. You can learn more at panhandleplains.org. Okay, when you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for? And I'm interested in this because you have lived in larger cities.
Yes.
Amarillo is moving in that direction. So what's something you hope for?
When I think about my friends visiting me, they always, again, from big cities, they're like, let's go to your downtown. I'm like, ooh, there's not all much to do. So when I think about 10 years from now, I really think and hope that some infrastructure comes in there and a hall of the downtown to make it more alluring to people. I love down. It's getting better.
It's a lot better than it was.
It's
10
getting
years
better.
Ago.
Absolutely. But can we imagine 10 years from now?
Right.
How great it could be.
A lot of it's centered on like Polk Street.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a lot of action there, but what about Tyler? What about Taylor?
Yes, there's so much potential. There's so much that I would love to just let me do this. I can't afford to do that, but it would be so cool to have shopping down there and more food options, and that'll lead into something else of an idea I have. But yeah.
Okay. Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
I think it has too much fast food and chains. Too many of them, like coffee chains and fast. Like we really didn't need another Wendy's on Sonsi. We could have used something else.
Yeah.
I think it just has too much of that.
I want to say I-40 is a big part of that.
Yeah.
But you know what? You've lived along I-25 corridor.
Right.
It must feel a little bit different here, the amount of fast food, than maybe you saw in Pueblo or
it's pure like restaurants down I-40. Yeah. I-25 is businesses and getting like IKEA and Walmarts and Targets and car shopping, more businessy aspects, I guess, or big buildings. Mm-hmm. Not so much. You have to drive to go get a fast food, a cheeseburger.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's ridiculous here.
All right.
There's so much.
What does this area not have enough of?
Okay. healthy food options.
Okay.
Even healthy food grocery stores. So yes, we have natural grocers, but the competition for United, we need more. Whole Foods is not going to come here. I've already emailed them several times.
They
ignored me.
No.
They're like, ma'am, leave us alone. Trader Joe's even would be great. I think there's a big Trader Joe's group going, please, something more competition for United on the healthier aspect. I truly miss Whole Foods and Trader Joe's.
Okay.
With a fiery flame.
You're not alone. Here in Texas, people talk about HEB all the time.
Yes, HEB as well. Yeah.
We'd be happy with all of those.
Yeah. Just some competition.
Yeah. I understand that. What's your favorite local neighborhood?
I think it would be unfair of me to not say Wolflin. It's nostalgia. My grandma lived on Washington across from Memorial. And so we would always go, on the Amarillo College side of the streets over there. You got Van Buren and stuff like that. And then behind her, it was just, it was a thing. Always walk around on the brick streets. It's just so beautiful. And the old trees. It's the trees. The trees kill me. Yeah. They're so beautiful. And I love Sunset Terrace. The houses are so cute. Yeah. They're just so cute.
That's a historic neighborhood that I think is as unique as Wolfland, but doesn't quite get the same attention.
Not at all. I was just driving over there the other day. I was like, goodness. I want all of them. They're so cute.
Okay, what's your favorite local restaurant or food truck? I know you've encountered a lot of food trucks in the work that you do, but...
We'll start with my favorite local restaurants. Roosters, hands down. Love them. Girasol and Bangkok, Tokyo.
All right.
Those are my faves. Food trucks are hard because they're so good, but Reagan's. Yeah. Reagan's is my absolute favorite.
They do they're one of those food trucks that is almost exclusively private events, as they don't just go park somewhere.
No. Sometimes.
Yeah, but it's pretty rare, it feels to me. So do you end up doing a lot of events alongside them?
We do a lot together. Yeah, they're absolutely fabulous. Yeah. And wonderful, wonderful people. They came out and they were working at the school that I was working at out at Hamlet. They came out for Teacher Appreciation Week and they helped us. It was so sweet. They're just so kind. Yeah. We love them. They're good people.
Okay, what's the most underrated aspect of living in Amarillo?
Okay, so we were talking about driving on I-40. You just think that that's what it is. This is what Amarillo is. Like, awful. You got Jurien and Saltgrass and, just that I-40 corridor. But if you don't ever get off, you don't ever get to see. And so I think there is so much beauty to offer. And a lot of people driving through I-40 and just through Amarillo don't have any idea that we have like a gorgeous, huge canyon, the second largest. And with that, you have like Lake Tanglewood and River Falls and just how pretty the pretty spaces we do have.
Right. Yeah, that you're not going to see if you're just passing through.
Yeah, Cadillac Ranch. Yeah. That's all you see. Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite local nonprofit?
Amarillo Angels.
Okay.
Yeah. I love them. We volunteer. I have a group of girlfriends and we volunteer for Amarillo Angels. We do their program called the Love Box. Right. They're everything they stand for. I love them.
How did they get on your radar? Do you have a connection to foster care or anything like that? Or
I just have a friend who said, hey, would you like to be a part of this? I'm always looking to volunteer wherever I can or be a part of any organization. I think it's extremely important to give back in any way you can. And I was like, yeah, let me get into it. And so we had a meeting and I just fell in love. And then, mom prom and all of these great things. And I just love everything they stand for. So.
Okay. You mentioned Cadillac Ranch. When was the last time you visited Cadillac Ranch?
When I brought my husband to visit Amarillo for the first time. So I'd say like maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I asked my grandma that yesterday. Actually, we were eating dinner and I said, when's the last time you've been to Cadillac Ranch? And she goes, I have lived here my whole life and I've been one time.
That's not surprising.
Yeah.
And one time is probably enough. Like,
right.
There's not a lot of locals who go multiple times or
I'm
make it a regular trip.
When my son is a little bit older, obviously we'll take him and he'll play around, but not an everyday stop for me.
Okay. That concludes the 8 straight questions. I like to close by asking my guest to endorse something. So what's one thing you would like listeners to know about or to experience?
If I had to endorse something for Amarillo, I think it would be really cool. Again, I was saying with the downtown experience, in these larger cities, there's a bunch of food halls. So there's one specifically in Denver. It's an old airport hangar called the Stanley. And it is so neat. And it's a place, and I feel like there's not enough places here that highlight local food in a big hub, like a food hall.
Right.
And there's not space for family. There's space for like adults or kids specifically, but I want to do it together, right? So creating this hub where families can be around and there's spot for kids to play and you go grab your food and just eat and be merry. I think it would be fabulous. Or take an old historical building and do something great to it. So
I agree with that. One of the things my family laughs about me is that anytime we go somewhere and I see a food hall, I get real excited. I'm like, oh, it's a food hall, because we don't have to decide what we all want to eat.
It's
we can all just go,
ever.
just go find whatever.
Yes.
And Amarillo has so many large buildings that are not being used. We have so many food trucks.
Yes.
Like, why not throw all that together and just, have a place like that? We've got a food truck park. That's great. Let's do something indoors.
Yes.
And create that
playground
scenario.
or something inside for the kid. Yeah. It would be fabulous. I wanted so bad to turn the Crest building into that. And
I've had the same thought.
The Crest building is so cool, and it's big enough, and it has the 3 layers, or the 3 levels. But I just need we need hands. Yeah. We need pockets.
Pockets and a few
wallets.
Few $1 million. That's all.
Yeah, it would be so neat though. But I mean, it does make me nervous because you're like, will it go over well in that downtown area?
Downtown, yeah.
Because a lot of the good stuff and like family oriented stuff is like West Soncy, Coulter.
It's got to be enough to draw people during the evening.
Yeah, parking
is
a
a
problem.
big deal too. Yeah. So
lots of thoughts.
I think it can work. I want to see it.
Me too.
I hope somebody's listening who has those deep pockets.
Call me.
We have ideas.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, Brittani Sullivan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
And that concludes the episode. I want to say thanks to Brittani for the interview. You can learn more about her mobile bartending service at sipsandgiggle.com. Thanks also to Amarillo Habitat for Humanity, Storybridge, and Panhandle Plains Historical Museum for supporting the podcast. And as always, thanks to Angelina Marie for editing the show. And thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you listen every week. Hey Amarillo exists because of listeners like you and the local people who support it financially through patreon.com/HeyAmarillo. Hey Amarillo's executive producers include Patrick Burns, Jason Burr, Josh Wood, Katie Linger, Wes Reeves, Cindy Graham, Barbara and Jim Witten, and Corey Burns. This has been episode 361. My name is Jason Boyette, and I'll see you next week.